Place to be Nation, welcome back to the one and only Place to Be Podcast. I'm your co-host, Justin Rosero, coming to you here from the PTB and studios. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Scott Criscola. Scotland, how are you?
JR, good evening. Good evening, No-So, and the PTB Wrestling Network family. Welcome to episode 646 of the longest-running episodic by the fucking gold standard. February it is. Man,
when we started the show, Scott, you were less old, and now you're just old. So it's been a long time.
It's better to being old and older. I'll take that. So, anyway.
And this is a pretty special episode, though, because it's our 13th birthday, Scott. So happy birthday to you on the Place to Be Podcast. Of course, the show started on February 11th, 2011. Yep. And air date on this is February 12th, 2024. So fun little episode here. And we have a great guest, I think, to help us celebrate. He's a longtime fan of the show, longtime fan of everything. And you see him often on the North-South Connection. Of course, this podcast is being simulcast both audio on Place to Be Nation Wrestling Podcast Network and video at the North-South Connection. So if you want to watch us and see us celebrate this birthday occasion, you can see our guest as well, and he is, of course, a member of the band Chained to the Dead, and is, again, you see him across all of our various podcasts and elsewhere, Mr. Rocco Martel. Rocco, how are you?
Dude, I am awesome. I didn't know I was going to be part of such a momentous episode. That's wild.
Surprise
there
party.
You go. Welcome to the
it's
party.
It's crazy to think I've been listening to you guys talk for 13 years, and you think about that, and you really add up the number of episodes and the hours of the day that I've spent listening to you gentlemen. It's pretty fucking crazy.
It is.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's rewarding. It's also sad. But there's a lot in between those two things as well. And we're happy to have you here to help us celebrate this.
My first episode, I think, was $5.99, and now I'm like the fifth guy or sixth guy in the new format. I mean, if I was on MySpace, I'd be in your top 8 or something like that. It seems like
you're in.
Pretty good.
I'm not gonna make any comments about the trajectory. I hurt poor Steve Riddle's feelings when I said we went from Chad to Steve to Jordan. It was more of a joke about Jordan, but I think I insulted poor Steve Riddle, which I didn't mean to do. We love Steve. Heart of gold on that boy. But it is good to have you here. I will put you over because you are often a member of the Cronoso podcast here on North-South Connection, where we're chronologically going through the history of WWF in various forms. So we're doing pay-per-views, series of events, some house show stuff, some TV stuff. Ryan Gray puts a shitload of work to getting that out every other week. But your segments, Rocco, are usually some of my favorite. I find that your storytelling ability to bring you into the match and the moment is really strong. So I don't know if I ever told you that, but you are my favorite on the Cronoso series. Just because I think you do a great job of even the most minutia of the most random matches. Like you make sound, punches and this sound exciting and bring that out. So.
No, like
my birthday gift to you.
Oh, I really appreciate that. It's a genuine enthusiasm that you're hearing.
Yeah.
And also, sorry, Steve Riddle, because I think he's on that too. So you're
everyone's great. I love listening to him, honestly. I'm behind, but I like listening to him. My favorite that you did was Survivor Series 87. The promo leading up to the main event. Like I think you did like the Hogan team and the Andre. I don't know if you did both or I forget which ones you did, but you really set the stage wonderfully for the main event by going through that promo and breaking it down the way you did. So
I mean, I do like to watch wrestling and look at it in the ways that like can ramify throughout and like really like it's not necessarily like it's like what we're doing tonight. It's not necessarily the destination, it's the journey, it's the squeeze, that the juice, like it's just I don't know, just there's so much there if you really want to go beyond the headlocks and the takedowns and stuff like that, right?
Cool. Well, I appreciate it.
I agree.
Speaking of journeys, Ryan Gray and I are on a journey right now. We're on a daily journey, bringing you a breakdown of every WrestleMania match ever, 402 of them. We're doing them in short format, so everyone is a minute or less. We rank them all, and like 5 a day or so hit on our social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook Reels, and YouTube Shorts. So if you want to catch up, you're new to it, you haven't heard about it, go to our YouTube channel, No-So Connection, go to the playlist. There's a playlist for No-So Countdown, every WrestleMania match ever. And again, they're less than a minute, but we're doing every single one. And the final number 1 will drop WrestleMania Saturday this year. That's the goal anyway. So check that out if you haven't seen it yet. And all right, why don't we go to dive in, Scott? Our new project here, Making Towns. We bring a guest in. They talk about a town or city wrestling history that's important to them. Pick a match that we'll watch toward the end. But first, we'll talk about kind of what happened that week in history and pop culture. Get into the history of that town. before watching the match. Rocco, so before we dive in, why don't you go ahead and tell us what city you picked and the match you picked and why?
We're going to go to East Rutherford, New Jersey, SummerSlam 89, the Savage and Zeus versus Beefcake and Hogan. I picked it just because it's when you said it, I kind of assumed everyone would kind of pick their hometown, and I guess not everyone does have a hometown venue. Like the Meadowlands was 5 minutes, 10 minutes from my house, literally. I could throw a rock and get there. I used to go there for the racetrack, the stadium. My first concert ever was at Giant Stadium, Faith No More, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica. Kind of hard to, and that's your first show.
It's hard to come down. Man.
It's like your first bagging Heather Locklear for losing your virginity. But man, like it's just, I just had to pick it. And if there were certain things that happened, I don't know. There's more unique things, but they mostly had TVs. They only had a handful of pay-per-views,
right,
or big shows. Oddly enough, I did think about doing the Ric Flair beating Sting when they made the WCW title in '91, but I don't know if that's even available anywhere to watch. And it doesn't really have that much emotional resonance to me, so that would have been more cool. This was just like, I will discuss it more when we watch the match, but it just was an important match. It was towards the end of my deep love of WWF. You know, I was getting a little older. I think I was 12, turning 13 when this happened. And we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so it just popped in my head instantly. And it's a great town. It's got a lot of history. And we'll talk about that later.
A lot of dead bodies too. But this, no, it's an interesting one to pick for sure. Because like you said, not a ton of pay-per-views because they do end up running into that whole, was it the tax issue, whatever it is, right? With sports entertainment. And
8 years. They didn't do a show between SummerSlam 89 and SummerSlam 97.
Right. I mean, it might
too many wrestling fans know the name Christine Todd Whitman. Like no one else probably know that, but it's such a wrestling thing, right? That like we know all these random people and terms and places that you would never know otherwise. Like no one outside of wrestling and maybe that area of New Jersey knows from New Jersey knows the name Christine Todd Whitman. Probably.
Name one governor of any state other than the state you live in, and maybe a couple guys from New York. No one can do it. But for some reason, wrestling fans know that name.
Who's the governor of Wyoming? You know, but we all know Christine Todd Whitman, the governor of New Jersey in the late '90s, that brought wrestling back to East Rutherford, and really
changed the percent. Like it really kind of, besides the 2020 David Schultz, like this was the biggest, like, hey, this is what we're doing kind of moment. Yeah. Up until like, with the whole work shoot bullshit that happened in the Attitude Hour. So it really is a very important thing just to run shows in this one state.
Yes.
But they weren't just running East Rutherford. Like they were doing every fucking high school gym there was 3 shows usually, right? Like I've seen wrestling in every high school gym in New Jersey, like because they were just running constantly in that area. Right. So like it's not just the East Rutherford show, I think.
Well, it's so close to hit. It means they're doing Philly, they're doing MSG, they're doing Hartford, they're doing New Haven, they're doing Providence, they're doing Boston.
Springfield.
You know what I mean? So like they're just in Baltimore, like they're constantly in that area. So of course they're going to hit it, Philly and Pittsburgh. So they're of course going to hit it on their path. It's right on the way. So.
And it's literally 10 minutes from the city. So you're getting all those dudes. I'm sure all the guys from the MSG show. I mean, Vladimir is obviously always at these ones too. And I'm sure guys like D'Amato were taking the train into Co-op and see these things from as far as Long Island, which is not that close to there. So yeah, I mean, it's just an important spot, and it was big. It was a pretty big, a big attendance and stuff like that. So plus, I mean, there was TV stations around that area as well, where they would shoot like I think, what was it? Pro Wrestling USA was over there in like the mid 80s with that WCW AWA thing. So like, it's just a rich area of that. And like, there's just so many, like there's so many VFWs in that area as well. So like wrestling is just constantly all over the place at that area. And that regulated it for them too, right? Like it had to have affected the whole industry.
I'm sure it dripped down to everything.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, why don't we start off by going back to this week in history? So it's August 28th, 89 to September 3rd, 89. Tell us what was going on around the circuit, different house shows and events, and then we'll dive into some notes from Dave Meltzer, and then we'll roll on from there.
All right. Well, obviously, it's quiet on the house show front because WWF, obviously, there was no loop on this night because everybody is at the Brendan Byrne Arena in East Rutherford.
On a Monday.
So, on a Monday night, yes.
Weird.
I bought this show. I paid for it at my house. I had people over. I was uber pumped. It's still to this day my favorite SummerSlam of all time. So I was pumped, Rocco, when you picked it. Incidentally, if I remember correctly, that GNR that was summer '92. That tour.
91, I want to say
91,
or it could have been 92. I'm trying to remember.
Because my first concert that I paid for was actually Guns N' Roses as well. It was December of '91 at MSG, and Soundgarden opened. So you and I both have a common love for Guns N' Roses because those were both our first concerts. So WCW did have a taping that night. Not much here, according to history, WWE.com, but they were at the Georgia Mountains Center in Gainesville, Georgia, home of a certain AJ Styles. It was a TV taping. The only match they have here is the Midnight Express defeated Jack Victory and Rip Morgan. And it said also included Sting, the NWA Tag Team Champions, which at the time were actually the Freebirds, Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin, and the NWA Television Champion, which was the Great Muta. So that's all that we have. So not much in the house show circuit on this day. Of course, no WWF because everybody was at the Meadowlands.
Gainesville, Georgia, a far cry from Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, not quite in the same way of mine.
Yeah,
there's no Patterson Plank Road in Gainesville, Georgia. So there we go. So JR, what do we have for any tidbits, any herbs, anything to fire up on this?
Yeah, no Herb yet, because he doesn't. I think the archive for him didn't start till '90, so we don't have that. And I will say too, like this show is before my time as a fan, which started right after, but I was kind of in it was like something that existed to me by this point. So like I knew of wrestling. My cousin would talk about it. My dad would talk about it. It was like, so I was starting to become more and more aware of it. Like I actually remember seeing some of the build to this with the chairs and all that. Like, so I don't know if I was watching random TV at this point or not, but like, I don't have strong memories, but there's some memories in there. But this is a tape I rented religiously once I got into it. Like this is one of the top rented shows I probably would always go back to whenever I'd go to the video store and get a tape. So I saw SummerSlam '89. I mean, dozens and dozens of times as a kid growing up. Yep. So this is definitely a show that I've seen, even though I didn't see live. The stars that are on the show are there when I start watching for the most part, right? So it's right within my sphere versus something like we did our last episode from '87. A lot of those weren't there, right? By the time I started watching, so it was more that I learned about. This is right on the cusp of when I'm a fan. So, all right. So courtesy, yeah, go Rocco.
I was just saying, it's a good combination of older dudes too. Like you still have Andre, but then you have the Rockers, and like to be a show to like rewatch. Like you got Zeus in the main event, who might not be the best worker in the world, but the undercard is wildly like fun and like just the Brainbusters match. Like if you're a young kid and you go like if you've never seen WCW and you're watching this like that kind of like you're saying earlier, like that's got to be like eye-opening. Like, wow, that is like, I don't know, seeing them there. Well, you can talk about that later too, with the idea of like Shivani being the guy like on the mic for the first time, like really just blows my mind. Like to think of like the most anachronistic kind of thing that you saw live. Like if you didn't watch that live, to me, it's like Flair showing up with the belt, Heyman on Raw, the Georgia thing, which I was in with Vince, like the Black Thursday it's called. Like, what are those like weird anachronistic things where you're just like, that doesn't make sense to me, like that this dude is here? And it's just one of those things that always kind of strikes me when I think of this show. But that's it's got to be.
And he's great in this 1 year he's there. I mean, he's super memorable on this show and Royal Rumble '90, and we're obviously big Shivani fans on this show, so it's really cool to have him there. But it is a good cross section. The undercard is really good. Even the lower end stuff is still really fun. Like Perfect and Rooster is quick, but it's fun. Dusty and Honky. I think the back end is where it drags a little bit, like that. The Hercules match, that sells Garvin at least, which is funny. And then Snuka DiBiase is kind of whatever. But like, so those two at the back end to me slow it down just a little bit, but everything else hits. And I mean, obviously Warrior Rude is awesome.
Snuka wasn't even supposed to be on the card. He just used to live in that area and showed up. He used to be a fixture at the diners in that area constantly, dude. Like it was a while. He was. There's been some very interesting interactions around that area with Jimmy Snuka. I tell you that.
I can only imagine.
I've heard some stories and seen him a couple times.
Yeah. All right. So courtesy of Scott Keith, our old friend, has the Wrestling Observer flashback. This is from a handful of years ago on his blog, but this is from August 28th, 1989. So it's got a lot of Keithisms in here, so bear with us as we go through it. So this is the day of SummerSlam. WCW played the wrong tape this week on TBS, airing a show from 3 weeks prior that included a Ricky Steamboat interview, and nobody noticed while it was airing. This is a TV company running these things. These people are supposed to be in charge of this stuff, and they put the wrong tape in the box and aired it. If that wasn't enough, they did tapings of the show that was supposed to air on August 19th and the show that was to air the week after on August 26th. Not only will 819 never see the light of day, they forgot to turn on the tape machine for the last 20 minutes of 826, which included a huge angle with Dick Slater teaming with Terry Funk to brand Ric Flair. So when Tony says the tape machines are rolling, he apparently is a big fat liar. This is actually the first show under the Flair regime of booking, so not a great start. Dave updates us.
Sorry, you guys both worked in TV. You know that nobody who worked for WCW touched that fucking tape. It was it was like some random ass intern. Like then blame that on like WCW management. It's such like a stretch.
No, some guy was making $8 an hour.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah. And probably
unless they shipped the wrong tape. I mean, that's possible. I guess.
Well, but still, it's not like it was Dusty Rhodes or Ric Flair fucking doing that.
So. Oh no, definitely not.
But it's like how they make it seem. It's like the perception that they put out there. Like,
right.
It starts at the top, Rocco. Dave updates us from the UWF Money Train in Japan, which is doing amazing business of millions of dollars per show. Is seemingly set to get a major network deal and take over Japan's wrestling business with a work shoot mentality. I don't think we'll get there before we wrap up 89, but basically in 1990, the market completely died almost overnight and they went out of business in a shocking turn of events. The opposite of shocking is WWF publicly predicting 1 million buys for SummerSlam 89, which would be an 8% buy rate, which is completely ludicrous. A more realistic number would be 4 to 5%, 600,000 buys. The real number would end up being 4.8%, 576,000 buys, which is a very good number. Crazy they were predicting 1 million because when you look at this card, it ends up being a really good show in ring, but there's not really like a super draw on the card. I mean, Zeus, the feud was good. It's not like No Holds Barred was a fucking Oscar winner. I mean, so it's not like that was this big feud that everyone wanted to see it play, Hogan and Zeus. Hogan and Savage, I think that feud had kind of died by this point a little bit. So I don't know why they would think 1 million. Like, I don't know what on this card would lead them to think that was even potential. And on Monday night, something that was going to draw that level.
Could have just been like how they were promoting it, like the juice they were putting behind it. I mean, like you said, you do remember not being a fan, but still being aware of the product at that time. So it could have just been the idea of like, it's kind of like now, right, where the product is bigger than any single person on a show. So it could have just been that kind of aspect.
And the builds were really good too. I mean, obviously, I'm a favorite of the Rude Warrior match. It's on my GWW Top 100. I think I have it in the 30s. But again, I mean, 1 million buys for that. I don't know about that.
No, I mean, no one knew it was gonna be that great. I mean, so it's a lot of this show is hindsight, right? Like nothing on this card besides maybe Hearts and Brainbusters going into the show screamed like classic. You know what I mean? Like even that 6-minute The Rockers ends up being great, but going in, you're thinking, okay, it'll be good. But I don't think anyone looked at this probably going in as like, oh, some big historical show. And we're really at the tail end of the peak years anyway. Like this is it. But 90, they start to bottom out. So we're kind of really starting to reach, toward the bottom of the mountain of the hot streak before the next one. But all right, WWF is still going ahead with the 12/27 No Holds Barred live pay-per-view and movie spectacular. They obviously aren't announcing Hogan versus Zeus until after SummerSlam, but that being said, Stockade is December 15th. 2 weeks after isn't quite close enough to properly fuck with the NWA, so Titan is aggressively bidding for the Rolling Stones pay-per-view from Trump Plaza on December 16th. I don't know if they end up getting their teeth into that promotion-wise, but I never remember hearing anything about it, so I'm guessing they get shut out.
I didn't either, actually.
Was that the Steel Wheels tour? That was a big deal, though, right? Because that was like their big comeback.
Well, yeah, they did a tune-up concert here in Connecticut, at Toad's Place.
And they definitely played here as well, if I'm not mistaken, in the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
NWA announced the Bash pay-per-view did the highest ratings of any pay-per-view so far. Dave notes is right out of the playbook for reporting these sorts of things. So the WWF, the actual number for those Poindexters hung up on these facts was 1.5% or 160,000 buys. So that tells you where these two companies are in conjunction to each other. Bash 89 is considered, the greatest WCW pay-per-view of all time, or at least a top 3. You compare to SummerSlam 89, what is it, a third of the number or whatever? So it's
like you're saying, this is a down on towards the not the nadir, but it's going down. Well, that was like WCW's. It's my favorite WCW year, 89.
Creatively,
so
yes, yeah.
Like a company
totally.
that has so much cool shit going on, and then drawing so little comparatively. It's pretty wild.
Jake Roberts had his sentencing postponed a month. The WWF is confident that no time will come from it. He's already advertising him versus DiBiase in October. More legal trouble as Andre the Giant was arrested for allegedly roughing up a cameraman who filmed his match with Ultimate Warrior without permission, named Jordan Duncan. It all comes back to that match for us in the show. I wouldn't want that committed to film either. The cameraman was actually given permission to film crowd reactions, but not the match. He claimed that Andre saw this and attacked him when his back was turned. Andre was charged with assault and criminal mischief. On a totally random note, the Ding Dongs, played by Richard Saratine and Greg Evans, have been working house shows in the opener for weeks now. I always thought they did the Clash at one TV taping and were gone forever, but I guess not. Dave attended a house show in Chicago, was amazed by Scott Steiner's moves, particularly a flying head scissors type move that Raul Mata used to do when he came to the territory. And of course, it ended up being the Frankensteiner. Big Van Vader got the IWGP title back from Ricky Choshu as Inoki continues to play hot potato. Dan Spivey quit his All Japan gig because the NWA was getting sick of booking around his schedule. Threatened to bring in John Nord to be Sid's new partner in the Skyscrapers. Sid and Nord the Barbarian could have been a team, and we were robbed of it. Anyway, Bobo replaced Spivey with Todd Champion as Terry Gordy's new partner. Quite the drop-off, notes Dave, in a dry way. World Class Championship Wrestling TV announcer Mark Lawrence has quit to become a preacher. Of course, that didn't last long. He's back for 1990. So they replaced him with Tony Adams. On our very first show, Skandor Akbar and his thugs beat her up to set up a feud with Chris Adams. And this is really the dying days of World Class. So those are Iron Claw. This is Fritz at his final moments blaming Kevin for tanking the territory. But this is and this is post merger, right? In '89, where merger with the CWA or whatever. By that point, was that '88 when they do that? Continental. Not Continental.
No, I think it's Memphis CWA.
What they calling it, like WCWA at this point, right? Like
I think it was '88, right?
Yeah, '88 they called. Oh, actually, it was '87 when Rude was champion. They changed it because I just watched it. I'm in the middle of that whole timeline. They the show was still called WCCW, but the promotion was called World Class Wrestling Association. And they changed. That's when they broke off from the NWA. And
right. Well, they had like USWA Memphis, USWA Dallas.
And they were getting. We were past the whole Lawler Carey shit. That was crap.
This would have been Stone Cold was there with Justin's ECW boy, one in the hanging out as tag partners. Rod Price. I think this would have been right around that era. Right?
Probably, yeah. And his jams shorts tights. But yeah, at this point, I think 90 is when they lock the door to the fucking piss hole sportatorium. But 89 is it's not. It's not on Peacock. I think Peacock, the World Class stops at the end of October '88, so I won't be watching it after that. But pretty much by '89, it's garbage. I don't know what the Iron Claw movie made me laugh because it's like, first of all, Fritz initiated it with Jerry, not Kevin.
Yeah.
So that's
a little dramatic storytelling there.
No, exactly. And secondly, it's like it was a piece of crap. I mean, I'm watching it in '88, and it's pretty much Fritz von Erich. The coolest thing in '88 World Class is the Samoan SWAT team. That's the best.
Yeah, but in their minds, it's like any promoter. Stu and Bruce were the same way. Like in their eyes, they're only one hot angle from being back on top, right? It's a gambler's mentality with wrestling promoters, right? Like the next hand is the hot one. So for them, things may be down, but you're one Freebirds Von Erich's angle away from heating back up, right? That's the mentality.
It never happened. It never happened. When you had Eric Embry as your light heavyweight champion, he was like 245 pounds. It's just not
Rod Price, though.
Yeah, it's a shame because World Class was so cool and like such a fun.
In its prime, it totally was. Rocco, I agree with you 100%. But this '88, not good, not good.
No, they hit the '86 is it. It's kind of the end. 86 or
86 because 87 is when Lance is there. They do the fake Fritz heart attack in Christmas of 87.
That's when it goes down.
That's when it was in the shitter at that
point. I couldn't believe they didn't touch on that in the movie because like they already buried Fritz enough. But I mean, that's honestly one of the worst things he did was the faking the heart attack and all that. And they don't even get into that.
No, not really.
Yeah, both documentaries I've seen have mentioned that as just kind of like
the WWE and the non-WWE when they both talk about the heart attack and Lance.
Lance.
MJ Lance.
That's rude.
Yeah.
Down in Memphis, cult favorite Freddie has been teaming up with someone under the Jason mask and feuding with the Zombie and the Undertaker. The feud apparently works so well that manager Roddy Gossett is now bringing the team of Frankenstein and the Wolfman to challenge. That's Freddie and Jason for keeping track. Dave never wants Jerry Lawler to ever call WWF Product Circus again after booking this nonsense. Dave recaps the rest of Memphis, including Ronnie Goss in charge. It's just a Vince Russo-style madness. Stuff like Master of Pain, a midget called the Little Road Warrior, wrestling jobbers, Dirty White Boy, wrestling Jeff Jarrett in a hair versus hair match where White Boy has to shave his armpits because he's already bald. Just insanity.
Was it Master of Pain the Undertaker?
Well, it's funny he mentioned the Undertaker, so it must be because maybe he said the Undertaker here. I don't think there's
Zombie and
and
Undertaker.
I'm pretty sure.
Well,
Master of Pain.
ECW.
I think you're right, Rocco.
I think that's when like Dutch Mantel is doing the yellow dog thing, and he's got like a hood on, and he sends them out of the territory. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Keith says the Undertaker here, but I don't think that's the case.
No, because it's obviously
it's really funny how WWF really has done a really good job of like just whitewashing his past of like he's so around up until when did he debut in WWF? 90
in a 90
November of 90. But he was
So,
Texas Red. He was Me Mark. You talk about Taker, right?
Yeah, like he had
Me
so
Mark
much
Dallas and Texas
not just
Red.
not just like some random dude who came out. Like he was a major part of a lot of
he was
stuff.
in World Class. Yeah, he wrestled in World Class actually. He did a lot between 87 and like early 90. So, you know.
I always think it's funny that Pringle was Stone Cold's manager in World Class too. I think that's an interesting
it's pretty awesome.
conflagration of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Stampede Wrestling is negotiating with ESPN. That did not happen, of course. AWA tag titles are vacant after the team of Ken Patera and the Baron defended against the Destruction Crew, ended in a schmaz. Destruction Crew will end up with the titles, which leads one to wonder why they didn't just, there's no point trying to figure out Vern Gagne at this point. Owen Hart was injured by Larry Cameron to send him on his way to Japan, so they'll feud over the North American title when Owen gets back. Stampede's one last gasp at a main event draw. Kerry Brown did indeed show up long enough to drop the tag titles to Samurai Warriors. So we're only one tag champ away from the end of the promotion. Let's see. For those wondering what Al Snow was doing in 1989, he's working for WWA in Toledo in a pretty boy tag team called the Sensationals. So there you go. Botswana Beast did a tryout for NWA under his real name, Benjamin Franklin Peacock. If that's a real name, why you change it to Botswana Beast? Benjamin Peacock. That is a great name. He should bring him back for Peacock.
I was gonna say that should be the Wildcat Willie of the Peacock streaming
BFP
service.
Baby. BFP.
Coming in for tryouts were Oregon's Top Gun as the Cuban assassin, plus Kevin Kelly, who bombed, of course, not our friend Kevin Kelly, but Nails. Tom Zenk and the awesome duo of the Highway State Patrol. Paul Heyman has basically been fired from his managerial contract. They'll try him on commentary with Jim Ross to play out his rather lengthy an ironclad deal with the company. Heyman's whole explanation of this time, of course, on the DVD is classic. He's openly talking about what a pain in the ass he was, but they couldn't get rid of him because his dad was a lawyer. It would bring down the litigation. Sadly, the Ding Dongs were unmasked in Cleveland, and now the gimmick is officially dead. Butch Reed is returning from his mysterious suspension with former team of Calvin Sullivan, while Ron Simmons is teaming with the Iron Sheik and Cuban Assassin. Or if this is a crazy idea, maybe they could put together Reed and Simmons. Rick Steiner's admirer Robin Green will morph back into Fallen Angel on TV. Not quite. Gary Hart's going to end up managing Dick Slater, Terry Funk, and Gray Buddha as the J-Techs. Sadly, the Bobby Heenan show was axed by USA, so the new format of primetime is Gorilla and Piper doing one segment, and Bobby Heenan and Rick Rude doing another. And, of course, that's not really what ends up happening. This was meant to set up Rude versus Piper. WWF jobbers are now being referred to internally as extras by Vince McMahon because he's a movie mogul now. Steve Blackman is coming in soon. Obviously, that doesn't happen because the poor Mr. Blackman gets sick. And finally, No Holds Barred is pulled from theaters this week for good. Final tally of 16.1 million. Vince openly is trying for sequel. Of course, that never comes. But if you were to believe Herb Coons, No Holds Barred number 2, How Much Can You Take? Ends up being Suburban Commando. I don't know if that was ever the working on that.
No Holds Barred 2, How Much Can You Take?
How much can you take?
There you go.
Title yourself.
I was frozen today. Oh, God.
So that's it for Herb there, of course.
You know, with all the IP that gets dragged out with these like the more modern sequels, like that title, just No Holds Barred, with any dude that they've had wrestling on that fucking roster in the past 20 years, like they couldn't have just got some dude to make like when they were doing the movies and they were doing the See No Evils with Kane and shit, they couldn't get one Chris Masters.
No Holds Barred too. Right.
Yeah, like they couldn't just do No Holds Barred too. Like it could have been like the fucking Scorpion Kings on like 7. right now, but like no holds barred, we still only got the one.
Yeah.
So
And the Marine, that's like
right. Yeah, it's like crazy.
Well, if they ever do make it, Rocco, I'll say this:
Mhm.
I'll be right here waiting.
Oh
to
boy.
watch it. Just like Richard Marx is right here waiting. The number one song in the nation this week in 1989.
You're such a
Brings
Marxist.
us into I haven't missed one. Brings us right into Scott Criscuolo's vintage pop culture corner.
I cannot wait. This is such. I'm looking at.
I need someone to do me a big favor and make me one big audio compilation of all my number one song transitions, because I feel like for 8 years this is the one thing I've consistently done well, if nothing else, in this genre.
The first time I was on the show, I was like listening, and I was like, "What the fuck? Why is he talking so weird right now?" I was like, "Oh, he's doing the segment." I was like, "Shit!" So even though I've listened a million times, I did not know that you were doing it when you were doing it. So.
Rocco, you have no idea how today I have waited all day to do this top 10 for you.
Oh shit!
This is about as Rocco, or should I say, un-Rocco. This is fantastic. So yes, Richard Marx. I want you to do covers for all 10 of these songs. Right Here Waiting, indeed, was the number one song by Richard Marx. Great album. 8 weeks on the chart. It was number one last week as well. Cold Hearted by Paula Abdul at number 2. Of course, that's from her first album. I believe that was Forever Your Girl. Hangin' Tough, NKOTB. The most Rocco of this top 10 list.
Absolutely.
Hangin' Tough by New Kids on the Block at number 3. Don't Want to Lose You by Gloria Estefan at number 4. On Our Own from Ghostbusters 2 by Bobby Brown. On Our Own. Great song. Number 5. Secret Rendezvous by Karen White at number 6. Once Bitten, Twice Shy. Once Bitten, Twice Shy by Great White at number 7. The End of the Innocents.
White, very infamous here, Rhode Island. Great White.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes. There was a Law and Order episode based on that.
Oh, right.
The End of the Innocents by Don Henley at number 8. Friends by Jody Watley with Eric B. and Rakim at number 9. And Angel Eyes by the Jeff Healey Band.
Not quite Pretty Little Angel Eyes from the 60s, but I'll take it.
No. At number 10. So there you go. So there's your top 10 for the week ending the previous week, August 26th.
Richard Marx tours with a sort of what was that, VH1 Storytellers thing? He does an acoustic thing with Rick Springfield. They're a package deal. I know this because they just played Montclair, New Jersey. So they go around and they do their hits and they talk about them and do like a whole like night with the two of them kind of deal, and then they come out. I do know this also because my wife's mother is a massive Rick Springfield fan and obsessed with the guy. So, but I mean, still kicking Marxy. I did not know, didn't anticipate.
Is she a fan of Eat Your Heart Out, Rick Springfield?
I mean, I should have played it for her. For the longest time when I was a kid, I conflated Rick Springfield and Rick Derringer. I still do. Like, they were the same, and I didn't know much about music, but yeah, so I always conflated those two dudes together.
That's funny.
I think our countdown from '87 a couple weeks ago, Scott, I'd rank above this one. I think that one was much stronger.
Yeah, I think it was too. However, I think this movie list completely blows away the one from '87. So let's go to the big screen and see what was in theaters for the weekend of August 25th, the weekend that just ended. Before this Monday of 1989. So we have a top 12. So here we go. At number 12, Me and Him. I have no idea what that is. Made no money. At number 11, a movie that did make a good amount of money and was an incredible film, Do the Right Thing. Number 10, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Number 9, The Package, which was a pretty unheralded Gene Hackman film.
Say Anthony Davis too. The same guy who did The Fugitive.
Yep. Number 8, probably in my opinion, the best movie the whole year, and that is Batman. At this point, it had been out for a couple months, and it was still making a ton of money.
It's a movie that changed movies for the next 30 years, right?
Pretty much. It pretty much did. Yeah, pretty much.
Timely to this past year because the Flash movie, of course, paid quite the homage to the original Batman.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Because he was in it. Second straight episode, JR, that we have a Michael J. Fox movie in the top 10. 2 weeks ago, we had Secret of My Success. This one's not as funny. It's not funny at all, really. It's called Casualties of War. I think it's
that is not a comedy.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So far, Scott has said Casualties of War. It's a comedy, and you also earlier said Iron Claw made me laugh, which I know you were using as a transition to their shaky History.
Oh no, yeah, no, not the movie was not funny, not at all. But I mean, just the liberal sense of creative license is what made me chuckle about that movie. That movie did not make me chuckle whatsoever. I guess the only part of the movie that made me smile was the end when Kevin was with his kids. It's probably the best part, or the part that made you smile. Anyway, Casualties of War, Michael J. Fox. I think Sean Penn's in it. That's number 7.
It's a rough one.
Number 6, Turner and Hooch.
I remember crying in the movie theater watching that. I had a hard time. Yep. He kills the dog, jumps and saves his life, and then the little puppies at the end. That really hit me emotionally.
Yes, it did. When Tom Hanks was still making.
I was more of a Canine fan, though. Actually, with Belushi, it's like the volcano, Dante's Peak, like in Armageddon, Deep Impact, but Canine and Turner and Hooch.
That's right. At pretty solid top 5 here. At number 5, Lethal Weapon 2. So we've had a pair of good sequels, JR, because 2 weeks ago, in 87, we had Beverly Hills Cop 2. And now here we are with Lethal Weapon 2. Number 4, When Harry Met Sally. Great movie, and I have sat at that table at Katz's Deli. That
tells me whoever you're with didn't have the same reaction.
Well, I sat in totally. She had what she was having. Anyway, number 3.
You were more the Linda McMahon than the.
I think that
Christy Hammy.
I'm pretty sure that the woman in the booth next to them inspired Chad Campbell's entire sexual history after that. So.
She was going right on the.
That's Linda. Remember they did the remakes for WrestleMania 20 or whatever it was.
Chad saw that and he went, "Fuck Meg Ryan." That's.
I'm going on the Disney Wish with her. At number 3, The Abyss, great horror movie,
starting Jim Cameron's obsession with the sea.
Yes, exactly. Yep, totally.
Never give up on it.
Never give up on that. Number 2, Parenthood, and the number 1 movie of the weekend, Uncle Buck.
The scene of him flipping the pancake with the shovel was in the trailer, and a scene that I just thought was the most incredible thing as a kid. I was just like, that's the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
And then the scene where he gets hit in the head with the door, and he looks like Adam Murray getting up. That's a joke for like four people.
Yeah, I don't understand that joke.
That's right. Okay. But you know what? It's an crazy joke. Another day, Rocco, we'll let you know. All right. So why don't we take a look? Again, we were in the summertime, so no NFL currently. Some baseball. Some baseball on this date.
I can't make Rocco the SD Jones of this podcast. Job into the football picks.
Job to the football. He'll do the double. Oh, no, they do the single.
I do have a massive divot in my back, just like SD Jones, though, too.
Did you do one gun or 2 guns? So depends who wins, who loses.
It's a pimple that's been there for like 40 years, and it's never gone away. And every girlfriend I've ever had has popped it, and it's never happened. It just keeps coming back. It's small, but if you know it'll look, it's there.
You need a slicer.
You need a juice. You need a gig.
Speaking of football, for where we are in New Jersey, LT's restaurant was open at the time of this SummerSlam, if I am not mistaken.
Yes, it was. My brother went. Yeah.
My sister's boyfriend at the time, his dad was LT's agent, not his sports agent, but his like personal appearances agent. So he would do like when he would do signings and shit like this. And so my sister got to go to the opening of that restaurant. And speaking of crime, I believe that is why that restaurant closed, because from what I hear, the Genovese family had a major part in that. But I did get to see LT once from a distance, and he was a massive.
Did the Iron Sheik leave his shaving kit from 2 years earlier with his grams for LT? I'm sure there was a piece of that. All right, so there was some baseball on this Monday. Red Sox beat the Tigers 6-3. Cubs over the Astros 6-1. Mets beat the Dodgers 1-0. Twins beat the Mariners 5-4 in 10 innings. A's over the Yankees 7-3. Braves beat the Pirates 5-2. Padres 9, Expos 4. Phillies beat the Giants 9-1. Cardinals over the Reds 7-2, and the Brewers over the Blue Jays 8-2. So the standings to this point in the 89 season, the Orioles were leading the East by 2 over the Blue Jays, 5.5 over the Red Sox. Oakland, the defending AL champions, leading the West by 1.5 over California and 4 over Kansas City. In the NL East, the Cubs had a 2.5 game lead over the Cardinals, 3 over the Expos, 3.5 over the Mets. And in the West,
yes,
the Giants 10 games over 500. Giants leading the West by 4 over the Astros and 7 over the Padres. It's funny, JR, you were talking about 2 weeks ago. We were talking about like the weird divisions and, forgetting that the Astros were in the National League and the Brewers were in the American League. It's the Expos were a team and the Expos were a team, which I also wish stayed that way.
Would Will Clark have been on the Giants at this point?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I love that dude.
Oh, no, totally. The thrill. Yeah,
this is right after they won the World Series. No, A's won that. Right?
No, this is the year they went to the World Series. This was the year of the earthquake. They made it to the World Series in '89.
88 was the A's and Dodgers. Was that what that was?
Yeah, that was the Kirk Gibson.
Oh, that was like the big famous one, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the Orioles before, and I'm pretty sure right around this time is the famous Billy Ripken fuckface baseball card too.
Yes.
Right.
I had that card. Yes.
Oh, damn it. That card was worth $1 million for 2 weeks, and then it went back down to nothing.
Well, what happened? It's funny if you. I know, right? What's funny if you look now? I looked it up the other day. There were 3 cards made. One, actually, you see the fuck face. One, it's scratched, and then one, it's blocked out. And actually, the scratched and the blocked out are worth more than the fuck face, which is, I don't understand why, but anyway. But yeah, you're right. That was 89.
I see the fuck face every time I look in the mirror.
Well,
I want the Anthony Armento fuck face. It's a Columbus card in my set.
Hobbies, talking about wakes in Jersey. He knows how to prepare a proper burial. Anyway, there's right on Patterson Plank Road. And that is it for your pop culture corner.
Thank God. All right, why don't we head now to East Rutherford? Let's talk a little bit about the town itself as a wrestling hub, and then we will get into the match itself. So East Rutherford, of course, we're talking SummerSlam '89, August 28th. The city is a regular house show stop for WWF throughout their history through the NWA, although the NWA would also run house shows here as well. Following SummerSlam '89, there'd be no televised wrestling event due to tax issues until 1987, when Christine Todd Whitman revoked the tax concerns by WWE admitting they were sports entertainment. The city has in total hosted 9 WWE pay-per-view events. Do you guys want to attempt to name them? We know one, SummerSlam '89. We know 2, SummerSlam '97. We've talked about them, so there's 2. You guys take a shot at the remaining 7.
I do know Extreme Rules 14 is one of them.
Okay,
I was
that's
there.
one, and that's that's one.
DB versus Kane. Which is
there's 2 very obvious ones.
What
the fuck? You were at both of them, Scott. East Rutherford. You were at 2 big shows in the last decade.
I'm talking about this building, not.
Okay.
East Rutherford. We're talking about the city.
I was thinking. Yes, I was thinking of the venue. Yes, WrestleMania 29, WrestleMania 35. Yep.
Okay. I was at 29. I was not at 35.
No Way Out 2012.
Actually, 4 more. Yep. No Way Out. So that was 3 more.
Armento was at that. He got me a T-shirt. I was at 2014.
I know that there was one where what's his face fell through the limo. I was not there, but my friend was there and told me he saw the kid step on it first. Whatever one that was. Was that Bradshaw?
No Mercy 04? Yeah,
is that what that is?
No Mercy 04.
Yep.
My buddy was there and he told me he saw the kid some dude walked on it first. Remember, wasn't that like the story? Like some dude was walking on it and broke it.
I think so. Yeah.
Because it was kid. Yeah. I don't.
The day after the RSC movie.
I'm trying to think. 98, 99.
I'll just give it to you. This will be all night. SummerSlam 2007 was there. And then one of the best shows that was probably there, other than the 2 SummerSlams, King of the Ring 2001. Of course.
Oh, yeah. The triple threat. Shane went through the glass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The city also hosted a Saturday Night event 2 times after the tax issue was lifted. Would also be hosted numerous TV shows. On April 22nd, Brutus Beefcake was on the Brother Love show, continuously called Sherry Scary, until Savage attacked him and cut his hair. On Sunday's main event, Slick would bring out Zeus as a surprise before Hulk Hogan's cage match with the Big Boss Man. Zeus attacked Hogan before the match. No Holds Barred, the movie, released on June 2nd. And then on June 28th, Randy Savage took Zeus under his wing due to their mutual hatred of Hulk Hogan on Wrestling Challenge. On July 8th, Superstars, Savage and Zeus challenged Hogan and Beefcake to a match at SummerSlam. A week later, Hogan and Beefcake accepted. At the following Saturday's main event, Beefcake defeated Savage by disqualification. Zeus got involved, and Hogan made the save, with Zeus no-selling the chair shots. And, of course, they would spend the next month hyping on TV with promos. Those notes, of course, courtesy of our good friend, Mr. Steve Riddle.
Your segue skills were not as good there because I was like, all that shit happened in East Rutherford. like that. They did this whole feud in East Rutherford, New Jersey.
I like to keep it guessing.
I mean, East Rutherford, real quick, for Sopranos fans, the racetrack was where Newark Airport in the season finale where Olivia gets arrested. They use the racetrack there because there's the racetrack is right next door.
That's
so
right.
They use that instead of that. But yeah, what was another East Rutherford thing I wanted to mention? Oh, Jim Powers lives there currently. My friend just did his cable.
Oh, all right.
Really? That's awesome.
My friend's a cable guy. He says
Just let Marty sleep now. He may go stalk him.
Oh, sure.
All right.
If he gives me enough cash, I'll let him know. And Dick Vitale, I know, coached there. And I know he grew up in Jersey, but he coached there because when I wrestled there one time, there was pictures of him everywhere. And it was like Dick Vitale, like this is like the 70s or the 60s.
Right.
And Steve Macklin, Impact star, grew up in Rutherford, New Jersey, because he was my ex-girlfriend's boyfriend's best friend growing up. And I would see him all the time when he would come back from the military. So, and like I said, GCW essentially started in that area. Carlstadt, I think, was the first GCW shows when they're called Jersey Championship Wrestling. Yep. And, so just a little more Rutherfordian information for you right there.
Yeah, it's a big hub. I mean, it's been a wrestling hub for decades. It's.
All right. Let's talk more about it while we watch, as we got a little bit of a lengthy watch here. So we got SummerSlam '89 queued up on Peacock. We're at 2:15 even. Kind of got the four principals and Sherry in the ring to get going. You guys queued up?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Let's count us down in 3, 2, 1, play. So obviously this continued the trend, 2-year trend now, of having a big main event tag match at SummerSlam. The year before was Mega Bucks and Mega Powers. You guys were watching at the time. I was not. Did this feel as big to you as that one? Did it feel like it was like, oh, another big SummerSlam main event? Or did it feel like to try to recreate the wheel a bit? Like, how did that hit with you guys, this feud versus that feud?
I got to be honest. I felt this feud was bigger. I believe it or not. I think that Saturday night's main event, the one
this one felt bigger than the Mega Bucks.
I do because, and I hate to say this, I think because of the Mega Powers and of Savage, and I think it goes back to that Saturday night's main event at the end of May when Zeus, the move me, and then Hogan gets beat down, and then that Saturday night's main event, and this is all Jesse. When Hogan hits him with the chair. And Jesse goes, Zeus is smiling at him. Like, what little things Zeus did, at least did well in that stretch, I think really pumped this thing up to like insane levels. I feel like because Hogan wasn't there for all of the summer of '88, because he obviously was doing this movie. Savage did a lot of the yeoman's work on camera. I feel like I've been rewatching '88 as a year, and he didn't come back till early July, so mid-July. So I feel like he was more here. Obviously, he was champion. My personal opinion is I think it's because they made Zeus just such a menacing presence that it really built it up to like a crazy level. So
I mean, all the stuff they did really sell. I mean, I definitely was falling out, I guess. I'm not falling out, but I was getting into sports more and music and movies and stuff like that around this time. So the idea of him being the character Zeus kind of just angered me a little bit as a kid. I think it was like one of those first times where I was really becoming aware of other pop culture and stuff like that. And I don't know, something about it when they were doing that, like it just really.
Well, it's weird that he's Zeus and Hogan's not Rip. Why wasn't he just Hogan in the movie? Like
exactly, it's like it could have been solved in a way of saying like because like I knew who he was. Like I had seen him on Webster, I'd seen him on First and 10, I'd seen him in Armed and Dangerous. Like it wasn't like he was someone that no one had ever seen before. I mean, he's a pretty noticeable dude if you see him in the movie. So like all they had to do was just be like, he's a guy who's delusional, who thinks he's this character, and that would have just made it so much better. But it's like Last Action Hero shit. And it really fucking like he just came out of the movie. So it was just really weird to me at that time. And it did seem important, but it just seemed like a thing where I was really starting to think about stuff a little more. And I think that caused
Does Savage still feel like a threat to Hogan to you at this point too?
I mean, he always did, but it did make it seem like he's so far removed from the main event and just dealing with Hogan now. It does seem like kind of like, and he's kind of like he lost his chick. He's hanging out with Sherry, who's cool, but like, yeah, I mean, it does. There is like a little bit of a downgrade.
He needed muscle.
Well, and
Yeah,
it
right.
feels a little bit right, that too. But it feels like a guy in a spiral. You kind of hit on it there, Rocco. But it feels like a guy who's lost his identity and is trying to figure out what he is now, right? So he picks up this new crazy chick. He's trying to get back at his old buddy. Then he stumbles into becoming a king. Like he seems like a guy that kind of loses his path a little bit and tries to get there. So I mean, this is obviously pre-King, right? He's still Macho Man, which you don't get a ton of. Like heel Macho Man post Mega Powers, like. It's not a lie. He's Macho King pretty quick here. So it's this brief little run. I will say these are like my favorite, though. Other than the classic purple with the 3 stars, I love this Macho Man gear with the silver. He didn't wear it nearly enough, the silver and black.
I mean, you could say something about the fact that he and silver and black, it's like, it is showy, but it's not his old style. And like Liz comes out in all red. Like that's a wild dress. She probably that's a very evocative dress. And they're all in silver. It's interesting when you look at it. This is
we didn't mention that, but yeah, Hogan and Brutus brought out Liz as a surprise because she was pretty much done by once 5 ended. She doesn't really stick around with them much longer. But she was a big surprise here. And it has the really infamous pre-match promo. Beefcake says the headlights on the big headlights on the motorcycle or the fuck talking about Liz's boots.
Isn't this when they're coming down 95 and swimming?
Yeah. And get the headlights, Brutus is in the back and Elizabeth's got the headlights or whatever the fuck it is.
And he quotes Running Man too, right? Doesn't he do the blade is a part of me? That's like all
blade is a part of The blade is part of me. And he's like, I got this hot thing behind me, or legs wrapped around me. I'm like,
yeah,
what the fuck are these guys? Talk about.
Well, I remember too, as I was becoming a fan of this time, one of the big rumors, at least in my area, was that Hogan and Beefcake were brothers, and Liz was their sister. That was a big, like 6th grade rumor, or whatever the hell that was, 5th grade rumor.
That definitely was a thing. That was like tantamount to like DiBiase was a millionaire in real life kind of thing that you'd always hear.
I don't remember I don't remember the Liz was their sister part, but I do remember the Hogan and Beefcake were brothers. Because they used to talk about them. They used to like allude to that even in the mags that they were related.
Well, he called him Brother Brutai.
Brother Brutai.
The Sherry was an inspired choice for Savage Joe because I don't think I ever had the appreciation for their act, Scott, until, if I had to put like a top 5 things together that I learned when we did that journey through like all the MSGs and really going through this era, was how great they were as a team. And because of it, I raised her way up on my GWE list because she's such an active part of their package.
Totally.
She's not just a manager. She's like involved in the matches, and they have such a rhythm and a cadence to how they worked together.
I agree.
It was really like musical. It was like the way they would come in and out, and she'd get in the ring and sneak in. Like it was such a really well done team. And early on, they kind of portray her as like crazy, right? She's doing the Witch's Cauldron and all that stuff. And they kind of get away from that a little bit after this when they get to the Queen stuff. But I thought it was a great choice. Like, I don't think they could have found a better potential manager for him as a heel.
Well, it's like one of those things like you're saying where it's like almost like a Fonzie and Sabu RVD thing where the act is so intrinsically tied to each other, where Bobby was great to be with like Andre and stuff, but he didn't have to cheat for Andre and but like, it's like the way that they would really time the way they did stuff and how her cheating was, really a fucking masterwork.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I remember fighting with Aaron when we did our list on No Holds Barred about why I think I had her like in the 60s or 50s. So I'm like, if you watch that, she's such a wonderful performer in that, and he's a main event guy, and she's part of that act, like she's just as big a part of his story as Liz is, because without her at 7, the Liz thing would have resonated, but that's a big part of it is like this woman who, it's like your buddy, right? He had this great girlfriend, and they break up, and he kind of finds this other girl or slipping around, girl finds a guy, right? That's like toxic for them. They're kind of crazy, like, whatever. And then he finally realizes it or whatever. And she turns on him. It like plays out this perfect Liz Savage story. I don't think resonates as much without him having those 2 years of being tied to this fucking maniac girl, that drives him into insanity as well.
Right.
Yeah. If you're a fan from long back, that she was like, she's the one, she went crazy first, and then brought him down. Like, do you think that Zeus like the fact that he never wrestled a match before this, right? That always kind of annoyed me too, where they like kind of one of those things of like show don't tell, where it's like they never show him just smushing jobbers or anything. He just all of a sudden is this guy who's impervious to pain, which is the thing I always hate It bothered me.
And really, he died in the movie, so why is he even here?
Yeah, it's true. But like, yeah, the whole logic of that doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's you never even got to see anything. I guess probably because he couldn't do much. But you know, they call him like a wrecking machine, and he's impervious. And
he sells some chair shots. No, he sells chair shots. And I do like one of the first things I really remember seeing as a fan is going to the Stop and Shop there, the video store. And I'd go hang out in there. My mom was like, check it out or whatever. And I looked through the tapes, and there was one guy who I would work with later when I started working there that ran the video store, was a wrestling fan. And he would always have tapes playing on the TV in there. And one was, it must have been Hulkamania tape, because I don't think there's any kind of main event tape. And it had the Hogan Bossman cage match. And that was one of my first experiences, was watching that, Zeus being on the stairs, hitting Hogan in the traps. And then the superplex in that match, which of course is awesome. But that was my first like exposure to Zeus at the time, seeing that. And that's a great Saturday main event. It's one of the best Saturday main events of all time, that summer of '89 one, that has that angle. And then I don't know if you guys believe in the rumors or not that Hogan Zeus was considered for WrestleMania 6. Like, I don't know if you think that was legit or not. I'm sure it might have been a conversation maybe at some point. I don't know if it was ever on the booking sheet, but
I could believe Vince McMahon totally believing that would draw. Yeah, absolutely.
I do, but it must have been before this match, because I can't see anybody wanting a singles match with these two after he had already pinned him.
I don't know, because they keep him rolling. I mean, they keep it rolling into Survivor Series. I know they wanted to do the pay-per-view, like we talked about earlier with the Scott Keith notes, but they wanted to do obviously still sell the pay-per-view, and Mania is not that far from there. So like, I don't know, they keep him cooking a little bit. Maybe they figured he's fine enough in this match that they could spend 6 months Savage working with him, DiBiase working with him to get him to a one-on-one.
And he might not have been willing to do that either. He was a working actor too. Like, he might not have been willing to just go train in a fucking gym with like Savage or somebody to get to the point where he could actually have a singles match. Because I could not. That would be one. What
a bomb that would have been. I mean, WrestleMania 6, one of the greatest main events in company history, with Hogan Warrior. Imagine if you get Hogan Zeus instead.
I mean, that was level of crap. But
I mean, could you imagine if they still need? I mean, you could probably get away with a Hogan Zeus singles match for maybe 5-6 minutes, but imagine them trying to do. I think Hogan Warrior ended up being like 26 minutes. That would have been absolutely.
I mean, they could have done it at like the main event in February.
I could see it being like a Saturday night's main event where it's the first match and the crowd is hot as fuck, but like a 3-hour like Mania at the end of a night. Where I mean, crowds were always hotter back then, but it just is like. I could see Vince like just obsessed with this dude, right? Like he's got an eye and it's grotesque, and like he really like like I could see Vince and he's like, oh, he looks like Bert or Frida Kahlo, like oh, unibrow, it's disgusting. Like you can really see Vince getting into something like that and just being like dead set on it, because that's what he does. He's done it a million fucking times after that.
Right. I mean, the Savage is fantastic in this match too. Like he's just carrying everything, and you can tell him constantly kind of whispering to Zeus, trying to direct the ship.
You could look at that as like he's like the Gary Hart talking to Abdul the Butcher or someone. Or
totally.
Kabuki, yeah. But also he's definitely just telling him what to do next, right? Like,
yeah. But it's covered. To your point, there's a cover for it, right? Because Zeus is kind of a novice, so Savage, of course, is going to tell him what to do.
And Savage is the unhinged one, and he's in charge of this monster. So the dichotomy of that is really cool. But like, it's always with the gesticulations, like. I guarantee Vince was telling Zeus to walk like their shit in his do the wild fucking Akimi type things. Like it's just like it's just so over the top that I don't know. It just always bothered me as a kid. I don't know. I think I was being too harsh on it. In a nostalgia lens, I see it much better. I also am noticing like you always whenever you watch these, you always go, wow, Randy Savage is like the fastest, most like
oh god, his speed is insane.
Yeah, the rapidity which he goes and does stuff, but like you forget that Hogan's a fucking like a super athlete too, right? Like it's like he's keeping up with Savage, dude, and like but Savage is always like just insane when you rewatch this stuff and just realize.
I
mean, Savage. One thing Hogan's underrated is his cardio. Like you always hear about Flair and all these guys, but like I mean, I know Hogan doesn't have an hour-long match, but he goes at a decent clip for like 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, quite often. He's carrying like 100 extra pounds on him too.
Right. Yeah.
I think the motherfucker does the leg drop. He is as high as the top rope when he does a leg drop.
Obviously, big point in this match, Brutus was hit with the purse, with Sherry's purse, and he's out cold. And I love, there's a point in the match where Tony starts trying to justify what's in the, Jesse's like, come on, Shivani, it's a
Right.
purse. And Tony's like, well, it might have a compact, maybe some lipstick. He's trying to like justify the inventory of the purse. It's actually really funny. But
Like, it's funny when you're a kid, like the idea of a loaded item is just like no one else who doesn't watch wrestling knows what the fuck you're talking about. It's like,
It's up
like
there with Christy Todd Whitman. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it's this weird logic in this world we live in of these things we know that nobody else knows.
It's a loaded boot. What does that mean? Well, if you kick your foot, it's a loaded mask. So there's a thing in the mask that doesn't hurt you, but hurts your opponent. Yeah.
The one of the indelible memories I have of this era here is Beefcake. He did it a minute ago. On Zeus's back with the sleeper. I always thought it was really cool that he was like, I mean, it's like impressive on Zeus's part, but him carrying Beefcake around as he's putting the sleep, because he did it on Science Man event as well. He does it here. I thought it was a cool spot. Beefcake taking the heat makes all the sense in the world, obviously, in this match.
Keep him away from Hogan as long as possible.
Right. And I mean, do you feel like this feud into No Holds Barred, the movie, the match, like, did it do its job in getting Beefcake to the next level, being Hogan's buddy?
For Beefcake, yeah. I mean, he was not going to be the number 2 guy because at this point, obviously, the number 2 face was Warrior, and that wasn't changing. Right. So this is just, I mean, if it was elevating Beefcake from, maybe like 5th to 3rd, yeah.
Well, trying to get him to like the Jake level, right? And Warrior is really going to be a 1A, 1B. Like, I don't think he's even number 2 because I think they were trying to get Beefcake up to that IC top guy level, right on the cusp of a main event. And I do think this run gets overlooked because Beefcake became such a joke later with all the WCW shit and the parasailing. Like I think all that crap makes him a joke. But I think up to that point of the summer of 90, I do think this partnership got him pretty over. Like this Survivor Series, he's super over in that opener Survivor Series. The movie, the match, and then they do a nice job of siphoning him into Perfect off of Hogan Perfect into Beefcake Perfect. Yes. That pop he gets a 6 is huge. And I remember being stoked. Like, I was ready for him to beat Perfect for the IC belt at SummerSlam. And that's what was going to happen. No doubt about it. So the question to me is, where does it go from there?
Do you think he could have used like a feud just with Savage after this, maybe to really push him as like a solo feud with a top guy would have been the thing?
Well, they kind of did it over the summer, though. That was kind of the feud. They kind of transitioned Savage off of Hogan a bit into Beefcake.
But not with like a big pay-per-view match or anything like that. I mean, like a big.
I think this was the closest they got to that.
Yeah.
I mean, that might have been the thing. This is like before the era of like having a great match with a top guy could just kind of get you over. You know what I mean, kind of thing. So it's
you're right. No, you're right.
I don't think he needed it because I think by the time he gets to the Perfect feud, he's pretty over at in that feud. Again, I think his IC title reign goes better. I think Tornadoes is only crappy. And Marcus and I talked about this in this last season of WWE War that we're doing 90-91. We talk a lot about the Tornado title reign, and I think it only ends abruptly because just they couldn't trust him with any sort of serious role.
He was
in the company.
He was a fucking mess. He was a mess.
Yeah, and we saw him at that Christmas visit. Iron Claw. Oh no, yeah, he was a complete mess. So like, I think Beefcake's IC title run goes longer. I think he keeps it probably till Mania. Like, I don't know if Perfect gets it back or maybe Perfect wins it back at Mania. I don't know where Beefcake goes from there. I think he stays as like a big star for them for a few more years, honestly, riding off the coattails of that run.
Do you think if Von Erich didn't come in, he would have just been that? They would have just made that his part?
Beefcake?
Yeah.
Well, I think Beefcake does way more than Tornado did. Tornado was coming in anyway, but he just takes that title match because Beefcake got hurt, and then they can't trust him. They did it for the pop. So Beefcake was going to win at SummerSlam and be the IC champion. So I do think he
so probably had a longer run than Von Erich had because Von Erich fucked up and
right. They just knew they couldn't trust him. They did it for the pop. So yeah, I think Beefcake's itinerary goes longer, and I think he stays. I think he stays the star longer because I think that run solidifies him. If he never gets hurt, if he just stays the kind of level he was at, he was over, he was healthy. Like I think he's there at least until Hogan leaves in '92. And I think he's in a much higher position than he was otherwise.
Sorry, watching Sherry take that bump.
Oh, it's a great bump. Yeah.
So like the thing with Zeus being one thing that bothered me about this is Zeus is the monster that can't feel pain, and then all of a sudden it's just like a clothesline and he feels pain. Like I feel like a really cool thing to do would have been to be like he doesn't feel pain, and if you had him like smushing jobbers or something like a little longer, and like Hogan's like I got to learn a new move to take down Zeus, something like that would have been just like like the Axe Bomber, right? That was his
reset the Axe Bomber, yeah,
like
I love
like
the
his
chaos
burning hammer. But yeah,
I
this
love
is
the
wild.
chaos of this finish. Like Sherry gets thrown in, Beefcake knocks Savage off the rope. He slams him on the floor, which they didn't even get, but it looked cool from what we saw.
Savage almost crushed his steps all over.
Shivani loses his fucking shit at the end here. I love it. It's one of my favorite Shivani calls. He picked him up when he slams him. He's losing his fucking mind.
You got Hogan. What is this?
Well, and I love this because already it shows you that Sherry is an active participant where Liz wasn't, right? She's in the ring, an active competitor at the end. Like she's part of the unit that's fighting. You know what I mean? She's part of the.
Well, she's willing to sacrifice herself for the cause.
Yeah, and that's a great shot. Liz clocking her with the purse was great.
I mean, definitely one of the first instances of man-on-woman violence in the WWF ring, right? Like, does he toss her before this, or is this after? Is that after this?
No, because they cut her ponytail.
No,
I mean, like,
yeah,
I mean chronologically. Yeah, so that's pretty wild to think of giving her the old atomic drop.
But you got
to stab him with.
But also, you have to understand too is she was a wrestler.
Yeah.
So you know, it's not like Elizabeth getting up.
But still, they were doing a lot of man-woman stuff, and here we go.
No.
Of course, she's got the hair extension, but
like 5 years later when Francine's getting super off the top. Pitbulls.
Right, yes.
Yeah,
and a good payoff here with them cutting her hair. And
yeah, I mean it's a
great main event. Yeah.
It's a little mean-spirited to have two muscular dudes cutting a chick's hair off, but I mean she did fuck around, and you know, she found out.
So here's my question though. Now, if Vince really felt like he wanted Hogan Zeus at WrestleMania 6, you could still have Zeus get hit with the purse, but why don't you have Savage eat the pin? Like,
I mean, Hogan already kicked
right.
out of his fucking elbow and made him look like a
yeah,
right. But if tag match, if you're trying to protect Zeus to be the guy that Hogan faces at WrestleMania, why would you have him?
Yeah, but it's a tag. I think they could say, they hit him with the purse,
and the just makes you forget instantly, right? Like a super. Like, do any people in this crowd remember that Zeus just got pinned? It's like what we just saw. It was wild, you know.
I mean, I think your thought process is right, Scott. I just think they had to, like, this match was sold on Hogan Zeus, so I think they had to pay it off in some way.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get it.
But I think they can explain it with the purse. It was chaotic. If he gets the shot without Beefcake and the purse and all that.
Do you think that's the only
joke is Hogan putting Sherry's hair on his head?
Yeah, is that like the only time he's ever acknowledged his baldness? Is like that one moment of levity, right? Like until he wears the helmet.
Kurt Angle in 2002.
Like you always hear that's like his thing, but then it's like that was a pretty funny thing he did. A little self-effacing Hulkster moment right there.
Yeah,
I think just what you're saying about the Beefcake thing is like, I think maybe it was the barber aspect of it really hindered his believability to me as a kid at this point, where it's like it's such a dumb thing that he should have stopped doing it. It's good for this angle here, but like he does not need to be coming to
see when I came in though as a fan, it was off of the heels of this. It's him cutting Genius's hair was a big thing. Like, so to me, it wasn't, he was so established. I didn't see him transition from heel and then start becoming a barber. Like, to me, that was just like a gimmick. It was almost like a mob name, right? Like Frankie the Barber, right? It was like kind of Brutus the Barber, you know. So it was like when I started watching, to me, it was so established that it didn't feel like a silly thing to me for whatever reason. And he was also my favorite guy, like right away. So he was like my first favorite dude. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. I think, like I said, I was kind of like my love of WWF was just getting sidetracked, and I was trying to I think I was like at that time, like 1989, like just think about like musically and movie wise, like you were saying. But I think just more I was getting into music and like think of like I don't know, De La Soul had come out, and Two Live Crew and Paul's Boutique, and like all this like new I was watching music become more evolved, and I noticed like the wrestling wasn't. And it was almost like going backwards in a way. And I think it was bothering me as like a kid who was trying to, you know, like establish myself as an adult, you know? So like seeing the Zeus thing kind of was like, I don't know. Like I'm trying to think back at the time, you know, I don't think of it. I don't even think it was an active thing, you know, it took me out. And then these little things like that in the barber aspect and some of the goofier things they were doing. Yeah. Just kind of like always kind of bothered me a little bit now. But watching this now, it's fucking amazing. Look at this crowd. Everyone, like I always say, like if the crowd's loving it, then what the fuck does it matter what I'm saying in 2023, right? 24.
It was a good first shot too. He really good.
Oh yeah, that was right in the jaw. Holy shit.
Yeah, he cracked.
All right, let's so who's our MVP here? I think it's gonna be Savage, right?
Knocked his eyeball straight. Yeah, of course.
I mean, he was awesome.
Except he hit him with the other side, but yeah, Savage carried this match
he was awesome in the whole match.
Yeah,
even though we didn't see that slam on the floor, but Beefcake had him up because you just see Savage go up and down in the front during the end there, and that's a bump you don't even see.
I think I probably missed that the first couple times I even watched this. Right, like it's just,
I think that was the first time I noticed it too, because all of a sudden you see Beefcake, you see Savage's legs go up, and then Beefcake going like this right when he's hitting him with the purse. So.
I mean, I'm paying attention to these thigh high stockings on Sherry too, like, which is another thing. Like the sexuality that Sherry brought to wrestling it's another thing. Like you're talking about the package with Savage that really can't.
Yeah, see, they just showed.
Well, Liz is like the hometown girlfriend, right? Lady, high school sweetheart, and then they break up, and he gets in with this like crazy ass fucking townie chick, right? That's just like brings him up a level, right, and breaks him out of his. Whatever.
Well, just even to the promotion.
I guess not fantasy booking Randy Savage's love life, but
but just the way what she brings to the company too is like a very
it's a Hallmark movie, really. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go 3.75 on the match for me. I think that's a good little nestle.
Yeah, I feel like I gave this match a 4 back in the day, but yeah.
I mean, you take all the components and put them together. Like it's such a great moment in time. And if you look at it as like Savage's work rate, the story, the craziness, the Zeus and Wiz coming out, like kind of like Shania Twain in it. She's got her own. Stella's got a groove back, and Sherry's like it's just such a perfect like conflagration of fun ass shit to watch.
Yeah. All right, that'll do it. Scott will be back in 2 weeks. We're gonna load up the van, head on to another new town. We'll leave Rocco behind in East Rutherford, but it was great having you here, buddy. Check out Everything Chained to the Dead. You want to tell us where to find you really quick?
Find that on any social media platform. Go to iTunes or Apple Music, and it's the same shit. Any musical place, and you can find us on there for free. And if you want to buy merch, you can go to Bandcamp, which is a place that independent music acts sell their merch and stuff. So, and that money goes right to us, not to a 0.001 cent like Spotify gives us.
All right, very good. Check all that out. Check out everything at the Place to Be Nation Wrestling Podcast Network and everything on North South Connection video as well, and audio. Just listen to it all. We got you covered. A lot of cool stuff. Watch it all as well. You'll find us across everything. Till then, everyone take care. Scott, happy 13th birthday. Another year in the books here at the Place to Be Podcast.
You spent it in Jersey, the greatest state in the union. So great day.
Where else would he celebrate? And it was really the birthplace of Place to Be Nation was in East Rutherford as well. So there's a lot of ties into all this at WrestleMania 29. So
I'll see you guys in Asbury Park in a few months.
A lot of cool continuity. So all right, we're out. Talk to you in a couple weeks.
Say hi to Jim.